time.
But now I'll attempt to bring this to life a little by walking you through how one of Feeding America's food banks, Second Harvest in mid-Tennessee, relies on PolicyMap to develop programming and target equitable interventions to improve health outcomes in their most vulnerable community members. So Second Harvest of Mid-Tennessee works in Appalachia. They serve 46 counties in Mid-Tennessee and have 400 partner agencies. So first I'll walk you through a use case of theirs in Nashville, and then we'll turn to a more rural area to look at another use case. And one of the first questions I ask with PolicyMap is, are the partner agencies and food box sites where they need to be? Are they in the communities most vulnerable to food insecurity? And after assessing transportation and community needs, they found that some vulnerable areas are underserved, and the organization decided to start a mobile outreach program. The concept of the mobile market is simple yet highly effective. It's designed to go directly into the communities most impacted by food insecurity and is stocked full of produce, dairy, pantry staples, and other resources. They turn to PolicyMap to strategically target where to locate their mobile market sites. So first, we'll log in the same way that Second Harvest would. This is the login screen for the site that Feeding America provides to the food banks to help with their food bank healthcare partnerships. And once we're logged in, we can zoom into Davidson County, which is a priority county for the organization. So to begin their assessment, they want to first get a sense of where their existing pantries and partner agencies are in relation to high need areas. And so up above the map here, these menus are filled with data, and we can just start by taking a look at one of the key variables that Second Harvest turns to understand neighborhood food insecurity, and that's the poverty rate. So you see when you look at people in poverty, you could look in a disaggregated way by race and ethnicity, by age, et cetera, but we'll just put the general poverty rate on here. And you can see as you hover, you see the varying rates of poverty, census tract. And when you click on one, you'll see one neighborhood, you'll see not just the current poverty rate, but how that's been changing over time. So we can see here how much poverty has gone up in this neighborhood. And if we want to benchmark and see how that compares to other geographies like the county of Davidson or the state of Tennessee, the nation, we can do that. So here in this trend chart, we can see that not so long ago, poverty in this neighborhood was fairly comparable to the high poverty rate of the county, but since then it has gone up pretty considerably in the neighborhood, while the general trend for the county has been that poverty's gone down a bit. So helpful to see trends like this when looking at different communities. And in addition to putting layers like this on the map, the organization Second Harvest also uploaded their food pantry and partner locations. And so you can see here, there's a data loader option in the platform. And so Second Harvest uses this quite a bit. And they loaded in their partner agencies and food pantry locations. So we can see where they are in relation to these higher poverty areas. And in addition to poverty, another layer that Second Harvest relies on is looking at food access. And that's an area that PolicyMap has quite a bit of data on. You'll see that we have the USDA low-income low access tracts data that some of you might be really familiar with. But in addition to that, we also have a limited supermarket access area designation. This is data that's unique to PolicyMap. And you'll see when I put it on the map, instead of being numeric, here it's just kind of a yes or no. So all the areas that are yellow are areas that are not a limited supermarket access area. And those that are a shade of purple are a limited supermarket access area. And for those of you, many of you who are probably not familiar with this data, we can learn a little bit more about it by clicking here. So we can see that there is a designation for limited supermarket access areas, which are areas that are considered to be well suited for traditional brick and mortar food retail. So basically that can support a full-scale supermarket. But in addition to that, there's also these two limited access designations that represent areas that are where it's probably not financially viable to have a full-scale supermarket, but where there's a need for locally and culturally tailored food access interventions that can help to augment the local food system. And so this could be something like mobile markets or other models that might be more financially viable than a full-scale supermarket. So these limited access designations can be extremely helpful for an organization like Second Harvest when looking to locate places where mobile market interventions would be an ideal intervention. So it's really helpful to look at these layers individually. But what the organization really needs to know is where is the right combination of community conditions and risk factors to indicate that, it would be to let them know the areas that are most in need of the mobile market. And so the way that we can figure that out is by looking at using the multi-layer feature in PolicyMap. So this allows us to look at multiple layers together and identify areas that meet certain criteria. So to get started, I'll go back to the poverty rate data that we were looking at. You'll see when you first put a layer on the map, everything, all the areas are shaded purple because it's showing you where 0 to 100% of where poverty is between 0 and 100%. But as you move the scroll bar, or we just change the threshold here to say 25%, now we're seeing only the areas where poverty, more than 25% of people are in poverty. And beyond poverty, race is another area that is super important to Second Harvest, given the high correlation between race and food insecurity. So I will put the population of color on as a second variable. And again, the purple areas don't change until we adjust the threshold here. So maybe we want to see only the areas where more than 60% of the population are people of color. So we're seeing a slightly smaller subset of purple areas now. And in addition to those two variables, we can look at a health condition. Diabetes is particularly important for Second Harvest. So I'll put that on the map. And then again, in order to change the shading of the map, we will adjust the thresholds here. Maybe we only want to see the areas where more than 15% of adults have diabetes. And lastly, I'll put on that limited supermarket access data that we looked at earlier to further hone in on which of these purple areas might be ideal to focus on. And so I will select only those areas that are limited supermarket access areas. And now we can see a far smaller subset of locations that meet all 4 of these criteria. So now when we click on one of these purple areas, we'll see the value for the 1 to 5, or for the 4 variables that we're looking at. So we can see it's a low access area, which is one of those areas that couldn't support a full-scale supermarket, but where interventions like mobile markets or expanding access to fresh produce at corner stores might be a better intervention. And diabetes rates very high, about 22% of adults have diabetes, about 100% of population are people of color, and poverty is extremely high at about 83%. So this is a Napier neighborhood, and this is actually where Second Harvest decided to locate their first food bank. They did see that there were a few partner agencies and food banks in or around this community, but they know that this one here is available only for residents and has limited hours. And project return is very reentry focused. So again, for a really specific population with limited hours. So there is definitely a need, and they also know transportation wise, there are a lot of transportation issues in this community, especially since it butts up against this highway here. We can also layer on the current grocery retail locations just to confirm that there isn't anything nearby. You can see that I think the nearest supermarket is pretty far down the road here. So this is where the Second Harvest located its first mobile market. There's an apartment complex here on University Court called the Tony Sadicum Apartments. And Second Harvest organized some wraparound services. They partnered with the Nashville Diaper Bank and the Tennessee Justice Center to provide some additional services along with the fresh food that they're providing there. So that was one example of how Second Harvest uses PolicyMap. And then lastly, very quickly, we can turn to some rural areas just to walk through one use case of theirs in rural areas. I know a lot of you might be focused more on rural areas, so I wanted to highlight one use case there. So Second Harvest in Mid-Tennessee, they work in 46 counties. Some of them are their priority counties, and they want to use PolicyMap to help identify potential partners to expand to in some of their rural priority counties where they might only have one or two existing partner agencies. So they uploaded this data set of their current partner agencies in priority counties. And as we zoom out, we can see where they are. And then if I layer on the county boundaries, we can start getting a sense of some of those priority counties where they might have only one or two partner agencies currently. So if we zoom in here, you can see Sumner County is a good example where there's only one current pantry that they partner with. So if they were looking to expand to other partners, we can first put poverty on the map just to give us a sense of where, go back to single layer, to give us a sense of where poverty is highest, where the need might be greatest, where food insecurity might be greatest in this county. So we can see that there's an area here, Gallatin, and then Portland might be ideal if they're looking to expand to new partners. So then we can add on the nonprofit locations data set to start getting a sense of which organizations they might partner with. So this is very busy, but I'll go ahead and filter out only those that are currently already have a focus on food, agriculture, and nutrition. So now we can see here a smaller subset of organizations that they might consider reaching out to as partners. So for example, here's the organization Hands of Hope Portland that they might consider reaching out to expand their network of agencies and expand their ability to reach communities in Sumner County. So I'll leave it there. Thanks so much for listening and look forward to answering any questions and being in touch with anyone who would like to know more.